medication's not needed or necessary all the time. And if you're not comfortable with medication because you're breastfeeding or you just don't want to be on medication, that's okay. You have the choice, and we can talk about that.
Welcome to Wisdom Beyond the Womb. I'm Trisha Harris with Trisha Harris Photography, and today we're sitting down with Alyssa Bass with Anxiety Therapist FL.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being here today to talk about mental health.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, such a huge topic in our world right now, and especially for moms.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a mom too.
I am.
I think that's important that our guests know that because you can relate, right? We share similar stories and experiences that kind of can bring comfort to them. So tell me a little bit about yourself.
I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I see clients in person in Titusville and virtually as well. I decided to dive into my private practice full time after I had my son. So I had this baby, and I was like, there's no way I'm going back to my job. And so it really aligned. And then I worked with moms and daughters a lot in my work previously at my jobs.
Okay.
And so after having my son, I was like, I want to focus on the moms for a bit. I think there's a lot here to learn. And so that's when I started training in perinatal mental health.
I love that because motherhood changes us.
Definitely.
And sometimes in a very positive way, right?
Yes.
And sometimes we take a detour and all the things. But...
Yeah, a lot of detours. And there's actually a term for it. It's called matrescence.
Okay.
And it's similar to adolescence. It's this time in our personal development where our identity is shifting, but there's also all these physiological changes that are happening. Just like in adolescence, there's lots of hormone changes that are happening, a lot of neuroplasticity and neuroplasticity, a lot of learning is happening. Same thing is happening in motherhood, both pregnancy and postpartum and beyond.
Yeah. And it can be overwhelming, right? Because as a teen, you're just a teen. But as a mom, you're keeping something alive.
You're keeping something alive and trying to keep your household in order. And for working moms, trying to juggle that too. And so you're working, throughout the day, and then you have to still care and connect with this baby after, having an exhausting, stressful day.
Yeah,
it's
and sometimes
hard.
an exhausting, stressful baby, right? They have in those 2 days just come together, and it can be challenging.
And I know what that's like because my son did not sleep through the night until 2.5.
So now you're all sleep deprived on top of this change.
Yeah.
And it's just like the perfect reaction.
It's the perfect
for mental overload.
Recipe for mental overload and for anxiety. And in the perinatal period, especially postpartum, our brain goes through structural changes. Our amygdala, which is like our primitive survival brain, actually gets bigger so that we can scan the environment and detect threats more easily. We're more attuned to our baby's cues and their needs. And then there's something called neuropruning that happens where the connections in our brain get very specific the word. It's happening to me right now because I still have a 3-year-old. So working memory is not back to normal. Our brains actually really don't go back to what it was pre-pregnancy. So our brains get really efficient. That was the word that I was looking at for tuning into our baby and scanning for threats. We don't really need a whole lot of memory, long-term memory, vocabulary words. We don't really need that as moms and keeping our babies alive and safe and cared for. And so our brain kind of deprioritizes that and prioritizes connection and survival. And sometimes that gets a little out of hand and it turns into anxiety or OCD even in the perinatal period.
So then mom brain is real.
Mom brain is real.
But also it makes sense why a mom can wake when the baby cries in the middle of the night from a dead sleep and dad doesn't.
Yes, exactly. I woke up to every little thing. Even if it's too quiet, we'll wake up to. Like if baby's not making the noises that we're used to, we might also wake up because of that as well. And I still do that.
So what does anxiety look like in a mom?
A lot of worry, right? We're thinking about every possible worst case scenario, and there's a biological purpose for that. We are the descendants of the anxious people, the people that were out there, in nomadic times who are approaching predators. Those are not the people that survived and reproduced, or the moms who were protecting their babies from predators and not leaving them in the field by themselves. Those are the moms that kept their children alive. So there's this biological purpose for what happens in the postpartum period and why we are so on high alert. And we do think about every way our baby could get hurt. But sometimes it can be really distressing for moms. Sometimes for moms, it looks like a lot of perfectionism. So like, I have to do this. I have to keep baby on a schedule. I have to keep baby on a feeding schedule, a sleep schedule, a wake time schedule. You have to have all the right baby toys that's perfect for their development. And so it can very much look really rigid. And really perfectionistic. And it can also look like isolating yourself because you're so afraid to leave the house, because what if I get into a car accident and my baby dies? Or what if someone kidnaps my baby? So all of this catastrophic worst case scenario thinking. Every mom's gonna worry. We're all gonna have those flash second thoughts about what could happen, but when it starts impacting our ability to live our life, that's really important to talk to someone about.
So you touched on that perfectionist view, or the anxiety will come out like that. But I feel like society and social media kind of feeds into that as well.
It's the worst.
Right? So heighten this. So what's your advice to moms when they find themselves stuck in that perfectionistic mindset?
Yeah,
it is crippling them.
I talked to my clients all the time about limiting social media use. I deleted TikTok when I was pregnant and I never looked back because it had such a negative impact on my mental health. And so limiting social media use and also reminding moms that what we see on social media is not reality. That's the curated, edited version of motherhood. That's what we want to see, is these really organized playrooms and homes and closets and drawers with these perfectly folded onesies that's color coordinated. That's nice to look at, but that's not
reality.
What reality looks like. Yeah.
It's hard because, like you're saying, it's all right there on social media. So you find that moms in the early stages of motherhood, though, they kind of feel trapped at home, right? Because they are caring for this newborn, and we have our phones, so they're drawn in. What would you suggest to moms to get them out of that stuck of feeling like they have to be trapped at home, to get them outside, to get them engaging with other moms and things?
Yeah. Social media can be really negative, but it can also be really positive. There's a lot of groups in Titusville locally where moms meet up, and there's play dates, and there's activities for moms and babies, or just moms needing, a mom's night out. And so however you find that community is really important. If you have friends who are moms and they just get it, and even if it's once a week, if they're back to work, finding that connection is so important. We don't need to mother in isolation.
No.
That sounds awful.
It is awful, right? But it can be hard, right? And so is going one time enough, or do they need to make the effort to keep going to these things?
Keep going as you have the capacity.
Right.
I'm really big on honoring your capacity. There will be some weeks where you're looking forward to it and you're getting there and you're loving it, baby's loving it. And there might be other weeks where you have too much on your plate, and that's okay. You don't have to connect in person all the time, but having people that you can talk to on the phone, that you can text, that you can call, or you can video chat is really important. So it's not just you and the reels and your TV.
Yeah. What are some other ways that anxiety shows up in motherhood?
Yeah, so anxiety can also show up like physically. So that fight or flight response, because our survival brain is now enlarged and primed for keeping our baby alive, we see threats everywhere. And sometimes that causes a physiological response. So your heart rate races. You might feel on edge. You might feel more irritable. You might be really sensitive to like sensory stimulation where, your husband or your partner's talking to you and the baby's crying and the TV's on and you feel like you're just going to explode. Sometimes anxiety looks like anger too.
That's important to point out and label it, right? So you talk about physical changes too. That can like you're saying cause the anxiety, but it can also cause other issues as our bodies don't bounce back the way we want. But what another unrealistic expectation based off of social media, right? Or society. So how do you help moms in that area?
Yeah, I help moms really tune into what their inner voice is saying. So our self-talk is made up of messages that we've received throughout our lifetime, what society tells us, what family tells us, our friends, or the box that we feel like we should be. And so we really pick apart what that inner voice is saying and practice self-compassion. Moms don't always like to hear this, but sometimes motherhood is a lot about surrendering. And instead of fully letting go of like what once was, like building on that and creating something new and just giving yourself permission to be a good enough mom. You don't have to be a perfect mom to be a good mom and to have a healthy and happy baby or child. You can just do enough. A 90 is still an A. I say that all the time. You don't need a 99 or 100. Just get a 90. You're good.
But it's true. Like, motherhood changes us. So transitioning along with those changes is important. So there's still, to this day, a stigma around mental health.
Yeah.
So how do you encourage moms to seek help?
I encourage moms to seek help in whatever level of seeking help that they feel like they're ready for. Meeting with a therapist is great, and obviously I'm a therapist, so I'm going to promote that. But working on your mental health can start with community, whether that's a friend group, a mom group, your church, some other organization in your community. It can look like a virtual support group. Postpartum Support International has great free support groups for moms and dads in the perinatal period. And then, when you're ready, make a call or send an email and say, hey, this is what I have going on.
So I guess you would say, like, you've tried the community reach or the virtual, and you're still just hitting a plateau. Then that's when a professional would be wise to seek.
Yeah. And in the postpartum period, we're having this huge hormonal dump, the biggest hormonal dump we'll ever have in our life.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's sharper than going into menopause. And so with that, our hormones, they play such an important role in our brain and the neurotransmitters in our brain, how it affects our mood. And so you're going to have baby blues. That's pretty common those first 2 weeks. But in the weeks after, the months after, and you feel like you're in this fog, you're worrying, you're afraid to leave the house, you're reaching out to your community and you're still not feeling comforted, it's really important to reach out to a professional at that time. That might look like reaching out to your primary care doctor, your OBGYN, or a therapist. But just starting having the conversation and getting linked to resources if you're not sure where to go.
And many times it is just conversating with somebody like yourself who is trained to talk on these topics. And there's not always medication involved. Is that true?
Yeah, medication's not needed or necessary all the time. And if you're not comfortable with medication because you're breastfeeding or you just don't want to be on medication, that's okay. You have the choice, and we can talk about that.
I love that, because I think that's sometimes what stops moms, because they are nursing and they don't want to jeopardize that. There's lots of changes that do take place, when we cross that line into motherhood. But it doesn't just affect us. It can affect relationships. Maybe we have to change careers. Tell me about that and handling that side of the anxiety.
Yeah, a lot of anxiety in motherhood can be like, well, what is this going to look like? What is my life going to look like? I had this envision of what I thought my life was going to look like, and that looks very different now. Like, I never thought I would do private practice full time, but then here I am doing it. And so coming to terms and defining what your new normal is going to look like, and communication is so important. Our relationships are going to change because we are changed, but it doesn't mean that our relationships are going to change for the worse. We talk about what's happening and we adapt, and being flexible. That's something I talk about a lot. Adapting, being flexible is really important in motherhood.
I bet it really is, to be flexible. And how would you help them navigating those conversations with their partner or spouses so that they can feel safe to have those changing conversations?
Yeah, we talk about like setting the stage. So these are really deep conversations that we're having. So timing is important. It's not a conversation you have as we're getting ready to head out the door and leave. So we'll talk about timing and setting the stage and really focusing on like how we're feeling and what we need to feel supported.
And with them coming to you, do you do couples sometimes?
I don't work with couples, but I'll empower my clients to talk with their partner. And when I'm working with a pregnant client, we create a postpartum plan. And so we'll lay out like, how are we going to prioritize sleep? How do we make sure both people get sleep? We identify support systems, coping, calming, and regulation strategies when baby is screaming and you're feeling overwhelmed and you're not producing enough breast milk if you're breastfeeding and it hurts. And so we'll create a plan for that so that you feel like more confident and empowered to handle whatever comes your way, because we just really have no way of knowing what that's going to be.
So we usually touch on postpartum, right? But you mentioned seeing people when they're pregnant, and there's pregnant anxiety is real.
Yes.
People go through so much now to get pregnant.
Yes.
That I think we sometimes forget that there's this whole other side of anxiety on becoming a mom.
Yes.
Can you share more about that?
Yeah. I myself experienced perinatal OCD. So my experience was worse in pregnancy than postpartum. I felt like a new lady postpartum. And so a lot of women do experience things perinatally during pregnancy. And so not only is there all this pressure to conceive and to make your diet perfect, and you're limiting all of these other things and you're trying to prime your body to conceive, but then once you get pregnant, how do I eat all the right things, take all the right supplements, exercise, limit this, don't limit that, so that I'm creating the healthiest baby, because all of this pressure now is on me. Everything I'm putting into my body is going to my baby. And so the anxiety very much can start pre-conception while we're trying to conceive, and what if this time doesn't work?
Yeah.
I've been trying for this long and I still can't get pregnant. What if something's wrong? And then there's this period of what happens if something happens to my baby and they don't make it earthside.
That's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see many that you can navigate that journey with them? Is that part of your specialty?
Loss is not part of my specialty. That's an area of growth for me. But in my own experience with perinatal OCD, that was my worst fear. I limited everything. I washed fruit 5 times with vinegar to make sure there was no listeria on it. Like, I was that paralyzed with fear.
It's crippling. People don't realize that. So sometimes in motherhood, we have these expectations. Our baby's finally here, and they're growing, and then a diagnosis is received, or they're just more care is needed, and that becomes another set of overwhelming anxiety to worry about. How do moms learn to navigate that with you?
Yeah, we'll talk about catastrophic thinking. Moms are usually pretty good at that, and challenging those worst case scenarios, but really building support around the family. What can be taken off the plate? What can be prioritized? And how do we prioritize time to really regulate our own nervous systems in a time that's incredibly stressful and there's so many unknowns, because you're getting testing and you're waiting for results, or you're talking to doctors about different types of treatment. You're thinking about what is this going to look like when my child is 10 or 18 or beyond. And so really just focusing on one step at a time, staying present, and making time for your own well-being is really important. We can't pour from an empty cup.
No, we can't, can we? It's hard.
It's hard.
So sometimes our worst enemy is our mind, right? And that can really take us down some really dark paths and just make us feel crazy. And all the things, right? So how do you help in getting past ourselves, essentially?
Well, I like to remind moms that intrusive thoughts can be very common in pregnancy and postpartum. And so a lot of moms can relate to this image. They're walking downstairs with their baby and they imagine their baby's falling down the stairs, or they're cooking and they imagine their baby falling into the pot. All of these really terrible things that could happen. And intrusive thoughts can be very common in pregnancy because, again, our amygdala has gotten larger. Our brain has been fine-tuned to look out for threats. And that's kind of our brain saying, okay, let's just hold on to the rail a little bit tighter. Let's just maybe we turn the baby away from the stove. It's not that you want to harm your baby. It's your brain is thinking about, okay, what are these worst case scenarios that could happen? I'm going to warn you about them so that you can just adjust.
Yeah. So it's important that, moms, like you said, don't pour from an empty cup, that they keep themselves a priority still through all of this and staying regulated. So what are some advice and tips you have on helping moms with that?
Yeah. So we're going to be sleep deprived. We might be the last to eat. Or to shower. And meanwhile, we're pouring all of ourselves into our baby or our children if you have multiple kids. And in order to keep doing all of that, we have to be pouring back into ourselves so that we can handle the baby crying for periods on end and we don't know what the baby needs, or having to juggle a work event and mothering, or a disagreement with our partner. And so we'll talk about ways to calm our brain, to let our brain know that we are safe in this moment, baby is safe in this moment. How do we get our nervous system and our brain out of that fight or flight? Because it's very easy to get into that when the baby is crying and nothing is going right.
Yes. Sometimes we feel guilty as moms, doing those things to keep ourselves regulated, whether it's an exercise program we're following or a mom's night out. We're finding a hobby, but how critical is it to having something like that in our world as moms?
It's so critical. We need an outlet and we need time for ourselves. It doesn't have to be a mom's night out. Like, if you don't have the capacity to really do that or get there, and I've been there, taking the baby out in the backyard and just kind of paying attention to the sounds that you hear, the birds, or, what new weed is in the grass.
Babies love outside, though.
And babies love outside.
Yeah.
Getting out in the sunshine is good for you, and it's good for baby. Taking the baby on a walk around your block or cul-de-sac, if that feels like about as much as you can do. Like, we can start there. We can start with like learning how to do some effective deep breathing, just to give ourselves a 1 minute break if that's all we can handle. It doesn't have to be bubble baths and face masks and nights out.
Well, those are nice.
Those are nice.
Just sometimes not a reality, right?
Sometimes it's not a reality.
Now, I've heard that a lot of women, especially in these years where it is harder to get out of the house, have found comfort in hobbies like journaling or coloring or painting. How important would you feel that would be for them to take on something like that?
I love that. I think coloring and painting can be very meditative. I'm in my garden era, so I just like to be outside with my plants. So you can do things at home that fill your cup. It doesn't have to mean you put aside 3 hours, every night or week in order to get that done.
So little movements over time.
Exactly.
I love that. Thank you so much for being here today, Alyssa. Is there anything else you want to share with us?
Yeah, just a little bit about my practice. It's Anxiety Therapists Florida, or FL. I'm located in downtown Titusville, and I see clients both in person and virtually. I accept most major commercial insurances, and I'm really big on just meeting you where we're at, how much you want to talk about, how little you want to talk about. It's a judgment-free space. I try to incorporate a lot of humor into therapy and just make it really relatable and comforting.
I love that. Can they schedule appointments online or by phone?
Yep, they can go to my website and schedule an appointment online. They could email me or give me a call and we can talk more.
All right. Thank you so much for all this helpful information.
Yeah, thanks for having me.